Because if you do know the numbers, guess what? You have confidence, you invest in a way that you're ambitious and aggressive, but you sleep like a baby because you know what you're measuring and you know what you're getting for a return on investment.
Remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
Welcome to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast, chiropractic's #1 business podcast. I'm Dr. Pete Camiolo.
And I'm Dr. Stephen Franson.
And it's great to be together with you, Doc. I love your new look. You're going to have to tell us all about it. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. If you're listening, you're going to have to hear the story. But Dr. Stephen is in rare form today. He's riding high. Hey, I'm just glad you made it home. You got a story to tell.
I got a story.
And, man, you're a man on a mission. We are men on mission, but you've been on the road and you've had quite a week, 2 weeks already. And so you got to tell me the story behind these glasses. Though.
Yeah. All right. So
he's ready.
If anybody's following me on social media, on Instagram, I hope you do, guys. Follow us on Instagram. We put up so much great content on Instagram. Make sure you're following us. It's Dr. Stephen Franson on Instagram, or at Dr. Stephen Franson. So Dr. Stephen with a PH Franson, and you don't need any punctuation or anything. Dr. Pete, what's your handle on Instagram?
Dr. Pete Camiolo.
All right. So you got to follow us there. Anyway, so if you were following me, you see that I got stuck in Vegas last week. So I had a big travel week last week, went to Phoenix, then went from Phoenix, had an opportunity to speak at Life West, got to do an all student assembly, which was just awesome with my good friend, Dr. Peter Kevorkian, who's now at the helm at that awesome school at Life West. And then from Life West, I flew on to Las Vegas to do a seminar or do some work with Alex Hormozi. So most of you guys probably know Alex. He's like the marketing goat. This guy is just a powerhouse anyway. So we hired Alex to basically audit and assess our business. You know, we want to build a $50 million business. Have never done that before. So of course we're going to people who have done that before. So the best way to find out what's on the road up ahead of you is to talk to somebody who's already been there. Sound familiar? Guys, the best coaches in the world have the best coaches in the world, right? So, and there's something else I learned, Dr. Pete, getting to spend some time with Alex. I paid $135,000 to be in that room that day. And the expression, the people who pay the most attention. Let me tell you what, bro, I was paying attention, right? So I showed up there 45 minutes early, my iPad out, my pen in hand, all of my questions, like all the data that was prepared. I wanted to optimize and maximize that opportunity, right? So just, I want to give you guys insight to know we're preaching what we're practicing what we're preaching, guys. Dr. Pete and I have coaches in every category of our life, and we invest hugely in our own development, because we know that the people that work with us and work for us and all the people that we're blessed to take care of or work with as clients, they're blessed by that, right? So it's a multiplicative effect. It's infinitely scalable to fill in your knowledge gaps and your talent gaps. And the fastest way to pull your success forward is to pay somebody who's more successful than you, more knowledgeable than you, more skilled than you, and close that success gap, compress time, right? It's the best money you'll ever spend, and pull your success forward, right? So, and our success is your success. So I was stoked to be coming back hot after that weekend. But man, hot is one word for it. Freezing cold is another, because this place is locked down, right? So they were canceling all our flights. I got 2.5 feet of snow in my backyard up here in New Hampshire. My wife couldn't express her need for me to return fast enough, because we got an empty nest now. All the college kids are out. So she's out there. If I shovel one more tablespoonful of snow, I'm out of here. I'm going down to Florida. So she was very happy to see me get back here. But man, they canceled my flight Sunday night, canceled the red eye on Monday night. I was literally just about to board the plane. They canceled the flight again, and I'm like trapped in Vegas. So if you're gonna be trapped anywhere, it's a good place to be trapped. I have my laptop. I have a world-class team of people supporting me. So we just got after it. Didn't miss a beat, except for maybe some sleep.
It's part of it. We talk about, Dr. Stephen, your commitment, right? We talk about your attraction is a reflection of your certainty, conversion, your conviction, retention is a reflection of your clarity, and your team is a reflection of their commitment. And, you're a leader, right? You're a leader of a team, and it starts at the top. Your commitment to chiropractic, being out at Life West and supporting Dr. Peter Kevorkian in the assembly there and pouring into the students. And obviously being there with Hormozi says, hey, we want to make a bigger impact. The way we make a bigger impact is through the doctors who we serve. We help them make a bigger impact. So you guys are all going to be the beneficiaries of the commitment that we have, Dr. Stephen, that you have. Obviously, your flight getting delayed and derailed. It was interesting. A lot of the calls that I had this week were actually about the fact that we had a snow day or two, and it kind of affected most people in this country, particularly on the this half. So the reality is you have a plan, and then, God maybe has a different one, and you've just rolled with it. And it's been awesome to see you continue to show up, serve, even in the midst of being completely thrown off. And glad you made it back. And here we are in the studios. If nothing happened, you guys would never know that. So I'm glad you told the story, because some people just like, oh yeah, it's Tuesday and the CEO podcast is dropping. And you're like, yeah, but you don't even know what happened right before this.
Since last Tuesday.
Yeah, just since last Tuesday. I mean, so many things kind of happened. And so I'm grateful that you got to share that story. And I think it's a really important segue into the subject matter that we're in right now. We're doing a series, as you guys know, we're doing a 5-part series. We're going through the two sides of the coin, the business and the practice, because we want to make sure you guys understand there's two sides of the same coin. And it's very important that we understand that. But at the center of the coin, is this thing called commitment. You got to be committed. You got to be committed to working on the practice and continuing to improve and optimize your operational component of the business. The operational performance metrics we're going to go over today. We're going to be focusing on retention in this episode. And then the business metrics, right? And so this is why this is important right now, is because for a lot of you, maybe have focused more on the practice and really focused on the operational side, but maybe the business is lacking. We found that a lot of chiropractors are like that. They kind of gravitate towards being remarkable practitioners and building a great practice, but the business has maybe got a little bit neglected, let's say, and it's maybe not been optimized, hasn't been the priority. And many of you listen to this podcast because you're like, no, I like what they talk about, and it helps me start to build up my business acumen, and I like being in this conversation. So thank you for listening. It's also why we do the events that we do, Dr. Stephen. And actually, I want to make sure that everybody listening today knows that there is still time to register for the remarkable immersions that are coming up. We'll have links to the events in the show notes, but March 5 through 7, we're going to be in Phoenix for the remarkable business immersion. This is the first release of the business immersion.
That's right.
It's awesome. And we are fired up about the new deliverable that we're bringing. And if any of you have been to our immersions, you know that you leave with pages and pages of notes. You can leave full, your team is filled up. We're going to do that again, as always, the business immersion in Phoenix, March 5 through 7. And then we're going to be a couple weeks later, and I know you're going to be there, Brisbane, for the business immersion, March 19th.
That's right.
In Brisbane. So
yes, heading back to Australia.
So make sure you guys, the links are there. If you want to register, the link to register is in the show notes. If you're going to be there, hey, make sure you come up to Dr. Steve and myself, give us a hug. If you like the podcast, let us know. We always love hearing it. It's always 100%. Great to hear it live.
Yeah, 100%. And having so many of these conversations and, inside and outside of the remarkable practice, as where tendrils get out all over chiropractic, people are excited about this narrative. The two sides of the chiropractic coin. You're so right. There's the practice and then there's the business, right? So just like there are three different entities, right? So there's hey, my role, I wear the hat as the chiropractor, right? I'm the doctor. And then all of a sudden I got in practice, I realized, hold on, wait a minute. I need to learn how to be an operator, right? So I need to learn how to operate a practice. Now I need to learn my systems, attraction, conversion, retention, team building, collections. That's a new hat for me to wear, right? That's not being a doctor, right? Doctor is the educating and adjusting, right? Knowing how to do consultations and examinations and analysis and being able to do your case management and, of course, deliver healthcare, be a world-class chiropractor and adjust, right? So in any other healthcare elements that you bring to it, that's being the doctor. Well, that has nothing to do with running the practice. The running the practice is a totally different skill set, totally different knowledge base, right? So, and it's a different identity. It just requires you to be thinking differently, right? So you don't want to have your doctor hat on when you're trying to be an operator, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then Dr. Pete, we've brought to light the conversation is like, okay, well, there's a third identity also, and that's called being a business owner, right? If you're trying to build a business, you've got to put on the hat of being a business owner, right? This is a different conversation, right? The practice is the clinical entity that exists to deliver healthcare, to deliver better health experiences and better health outcomes for the patients. The business is the economic engine that exists to drive production or productivity in the form of revenues and profit for the owners, the investors, and for the team. And Dr. Pete, that team point has got a big asterisk on it. So many people are missing the boat. It's like, you got to bring your team into this conversation too, right? Because at the end of the day, your team has got to see not only that their job, their responsibilities, their tasks, their work doesn't just drive capacity, meaning more throughput in the practice, more service, more patients, more volume. They get that. What they don't understand is that their work actually drives the revenue and, more importantly, the profit, right? And what they must see is how when the tide comes in, all boats rise. They have to see that as we grow, that's not only do you do well, I do well, right? So everybody gets fully aligned, right? So they have to understand the economics of it and that what's in it for them. Guys, listen to me. Here's the secret. If they don't see what's in it for them, you're missing out on something called discretionary energy. Mm-hmm. Right there, guys. If you're aligned financially, your team is aligned with your business and they see that as the business grows, they do better, right? You tap into what's called discretionary energy. That's an extra 10% effort for everything all the time. And that translates directly into 10% increase in profit. So that might be the thing for you this year in 2026, right? Is understanding there's 10% more profit waiting for you if you just tap into the discretionary energy of your team. And that means getting them economically aligned, not just mission aligned with service, but they have to be economically aligned with income as well. Dr. Pete, the practice is about health outcomes for the patients. The business is about profits for the owner and the team. Mm-hmm. The practice is about operations. It's clinical systems. It's attraction, conversion, retention, team building, collections. The business is the financial and business systems. This is marketing, sales, delivery, people, money. The practice is about services, volume, capacity. The business is about productivity, revenue, profit. The practice is about throughput, right? That's the patient care, the capacity. The business is about output, which is the money that spits out of this machine. The practice is about patient flow. The business is about cash flow. The practice is about the practice model. The business is about the business model. Dr. Sid Williams used to teach us the service hand versus the money hand. Mm-hmm. The practice must be sustainable. The business must be scalable. The practice must be purposeful. The business must be profitable. Mm-hmm. Guys, if you want to help more people, bring your team to the remarkable practice immersion. If you want to make more money, bring your team to the remarkable business immersion, right? So for some of you like, I want to do both. Great. Come to both and don't leave your team at home. Dr. Pete, I know what happens. People think, oh, I'm not going to bring these people to these team members to the business immersion. And then on Saturday morning, they're going to go, rats, why didn't we bring the whole team? Now I have to try to go and convey all of this back to my team. And what you're doing is you're just simply slowing things down. And like we said, the last time we were together, the most expensive thing you can do in 2026 is not grow. Mm.
So I'm remembering now that you're saying that, how many times I've on Saturday heard from docs, particularly that are at the immersions, that they wish they would have brought their team. And so we remind you of that here now. And we encourage you to seriously consider making that investment to bring them, because it's a ROI that's massive. So it's an accelerator in your business this year.
100%.
And so I just encourage you, as Dr. Stephen said, to do that. We say we're in the business of saving lives, right? And so, if you're on the team, you're part of the business of saving lives. So everyone on your team is in that business. So therefore, everyone should be at the business immersion. I mean, it's a 100%. Business of saving lives. So it's a 100%. Business. That's what this is about. And that's what conversations we've been having, Dr. Stephen, in this series is about the domains of the business. Like you talked about, we have the operational metrics and then we have the business metrics. So we're picking up today on a topic that you and I both are very passionate about, something that I think we do really well here in Remarkable, which is the retention side of the business, or the delivery side, if it's the business side. So I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about what are the things that some of our favorite KPIs, some of the things that, by the way, KPI, what does that mean? Key performance indicator. It's an indicator of the success of the outcomes of the work, or the work that's the most important things that we want to get done. It's a measurable of our impact and measurable of our performance, so we can actually organize our energy. I had a call with someone today and we were actually talking about that. Hey, if I see my metric is off, I can see it's off. I'm a pretty smart person. I understand it, but where I struggle is knowing what can I do to influence that metric, right? So that's not today's podcast. That's a coaching, right? And we help with that as well. But today we want to unpack some of our favorite metrics. So Dr. Steve, I want to jump into some operational performance metrics. These are all favorites of ours. So
that's right. So we're going to do the practice side first, guys, and then we're going to do the complement other side of the coin, which would be the business, right? So Dr. Pete, why don't you take it away with the operations, with the practice side, and then I'll jump in on the business ones.
So just so you guys remember, we teach a concept that retention starts at conversion. And I shared that when we met on a previous episode. I talked about how true conversion is when someone actually completes their initial plan of care, their initial care plan. And so their recommendations for care, true conversion. So I want you all to know that we approach retention in a very specific way, knowing that ultimately, if lifetime family wellness care is really the nexus of success in a remarkable practice, then, losing patients is off purpose and it's bad for business. So what are we doing to create a model? We talked about models, a model that is designed to retain and make it really easy for people to stay, to pay, to refer, to get great results. What would it look like for us to build a business like that? That's the retention questions that we need to be asking. So that just frames us out what we're going to be talking about. So operational metrics, one of them we love is stick rate. Stick rate is one of my favorites because it's people sticking around. And the question is, how long are they sticking around? How long are people sticking around? Stick rate, we organize and measure stick rate. A lot of you have probably heard the phrase or the KPI, PVA, patient visit average. How many visits is the average person staying around? That's another metric that's similar to stick rate. It's different, but it's saying something very similar. But stick rate, so we organize it by 3 different ways. We organize it by the number of visits. So how many visits does the average person stick around for in your practice? So that gives us a lot of insights. But that, different things, there's different stages in the patient care, and visits matter. And so knowing where people are stopping care, where they're discontinuing care by the number of the visit is really insightful. The second stick rate is by the month. So how many months does the average person stick around? It's another great insight to have. And then the third is which milestones are they sticking around until? So if you measure all 3, you have insights into all of those. It's actually very helpful. So we're measuring stick rate. I'll use an example of one, which I would call what we call R4 stick rate. So that'd be how many people who start care actually make it to their first re-exam. I mean, they completed their initial plan, recommendation for care. That would be how many of those people. So if I started in March and my plan was going to take me through June, how many people that started in March, let's say there was 18 people that started, the question would be, how many people should be there in June if they all, let's say, roughly on a 4-month plan? 18 of them, right? So now I can look at it and say, how many of these people in March are still here in June? And we're at 12 of 18. We know that we have a stick rate somewhere in the low 60s, percent, mid 60s, right? So that gives you a stick rate based on a milestone. We call that the R4 stick rate. That'd be an example. And it's really powerful. Does it tell us the whole story? No. We investigate further and said,
that's right.
How many months did they stay? And then how many visits did they stay? Do you understand how that works? So you go milestone, months, visit, and you just check that. You could do it collectively just by like a group of people, and then you can actually break it down by individual. So that's what's powerful about this is when you really start having someone who owns the future of your practice, we call them the boss of tomorrow, somebody who's a retention specialist, maybe a doctor on your team who's a caregiver DC who owns these types of metrics, they will double down and troubleshoot and look for these constraints and things that are stopping our practice from growing. And then with that investigation, expose where we can implement necessary best practices to reduce stick rate or improve stick rate, I should say, because it's actually, you'll get longer, right? So that's just an example of a KPI. We're not going to go this deep in all the KPIs, but that's one that we love is stick rate. Another one is compliance on the operational metrics, compliance percentage or kept visit average. So I like looking at kept visit average on the daily. I like looking at compliance more weekly and monthly. Daily, I love this. And if you utilize any of our tools, one of them is the huddle sheet. On our daily huddle sheet, one of the KPIs that we own is KVA. So kept visit. How many people who had a scheduled appointment today kept that appointment today? It's a big one. It's a great micro daily retention stat. It's the most microscopic KPI that we measure. Retention is the daily kept visit average. That one's huge because you can tell a lot about a practice that's KVA is less than, let's say, 87 or 88%. We look at a lot of practices KPIs and we see those numbers sometimes in the 60s, 70s. And people are wondering, man, why am I not growing? And it's like, well, let's take a look at some of the numbers. And that one stands out big time. The other is compliance percentage, which is looking at your patients, how many of them are actually completing their recommendations on a weekly basis. So if you're at 3 times a week or twice a week or once a week, did they actually comply with their recommendations for care, their frequency, visit frequency? They might have missed Monday, but they made it up Tuesday and still got their 3 in. That person was still compliant with their care. Their KVA was maybe a bit off, but they still were compliant. So this is why 1 number is a fact, 2 numbers is a story, really powerful, really helpful. And when your team knows this, you start to find there are people we've been tolerating, missing a lot and changing a lot. And we're wondering why these people are dropping out. It's like, because the urgency, the seriousness, the commitment, the value is down, and we let it go. And you wonder why there's this big old side door, backdoor churn thing going on. Which
Dr. Pete, I'm not going to interject too much here because I know we're going to be 2 hours here with you and I talking about all these KPIs. But you said something I want to make sure that they don't miss is, I think something that we do uniquely well in the Remarkable practice is we're geared towards compliance. And this is a philosophical point on one side of the coin, which is we know that there's a compound effect to chiropractic care over time, right? So we know that chiropractic is a lifestyle success strategy for healthy human beings. We don't limit it to a short-term treatment modality, but we recognize the longer somebody stays healthy, the healthier they get, right? So it's all about retention, right? The net impact that you'll have with the patient family happens over time, and it's geometrically stronger, right? So so for us, it's all about retention, and we convert to retain, right? Retention begins at conversion, right? So if you understand all that, then you got to watch for compliance, right? Compliance is whether people are following the doctor's recommendations for care or not, because we know that we're in the compliance business. And I'm not talking about insurance protocol or legal compliance. I'm talking about our patients complying, following the doctor's recommendations for care, which was the GPS roadmap that we laid out for them, solving their problems and achieving their goals. That was the agreement we made with them. This is what our best work looks like. Their job is to comply to that in this partnership, right? Chiropractic's a partnership. Compliance percentage is the most important metric to watch. It just is, because compliance creates everything that we want, right? So compliance drives results, clinical results. When patients follow the doctor's recommendations for care, they get the best results. So compliance drives referral, because when people are getting results, they're happy and they tell everybody about it. Compliance drives retention, because happy people stay under regular care when they're being educated, right? And compliance drives revenue, right? When you take referrals plus retention plus results equals revenue, guys, right? So we're in the compliance business, Dr. Pete. This is a number that everybody should be keeping a close eye on.
Yep. We geek out about this stuff. You guys can tell, you don't have to ask us twice to jump in. So if you want to, like you said, the worst thing that could happen in 2026 is to not grow your business. If you just did that one thing and just shored up your compliance this year,
100%,
you're going to grow your business. We can show you. We can
pick one of these.
It's going to be clear as day. So that's the second. Third is, and I talked about this a little bit before, inactives or churn rate, which is actually, you need to know both the numbers. So for you to know your churn, you need to know the number of people that are going inactive. To know the number of people going inactive, you have to clearly define what an active person is and what an inactive person is. Not going to get into that right now. We have a clearly defined criteria of what defines an active patient. And if they no longer meet those criteria, they would become an inactive patient. It's really important for your staff to be able to know what that definition is so they can tag people correctly and organize your active and inactive patient base. Therefore, you can actually more accurately define what we would call churn. A lot of doctors struggle with this, but that's a key component, because it doesn't, without knowing that number, you won't be able to know the next one, which is net momentum, which net momentum is probably, honestly, most of us have vanity stats. This one's not a vanity stat. This is a brutal fact stat. Yeah. Vanity stats is patient visits a week.
Nowhere to hide. Netmo.
Top line revenue. You start talking about non-vanity stats, brutal fact stats, Netmo is brutal facts. And anybody that's listening to me that knows what I'm talking about is going like this right now. They're not. And they're like, yes, it is. We had a great month, but somehow our Netmo wasn't that great. You're like, what happened? You're like, real life happened. It's called, you're in the business of saving lives. It's business. And it's if it was good, easy, everybody would do it. It's wicked hard, right? But it's worth it. So Netmo is one of those stats. That's, the truth serum, right? The brutal fact.
That's right.
And it tells us, the way we calculate it is you take your number of new people that converted, you add in the number of people that reactivated, you subtract the number of people that went inactive, and that equals your net momentum, right? Add, subtract, equals, right? So basic math, but if you don't have those numbers, you don't know your numbers, it's really hard to know the truth. And so that's our fourth KPI we loved. Yeah, Doc.
Dr. Pete, so something struck me. I fly a lot, right? So, and I appreciate that pilots refer to passengers as souls. Like when you hear in the news, God forbid there's ever some kind of tragedy going on, right? So the pilots refer to how many souls were on board, right? We have 315 souls on board, right? So it's like, I just think that is heavy, bro. I think that is something that's ingrained in them, that so that they don't think of people as like units, customers, just even passengers in the back. Right. We have the responsibility. We got 315 souls behind us. Right. So I think that as chiropractors, I think that's how we should be referring to our patients and our practice members. Right. So it's like, hey, we've got 315 souls scheduled to be in here today. Right. So I just think that elevates the consciousness. Right. So when we talk about total active patients, we got 397 total active souls. Right. These are the people that we've been entrusted with. Right. So when you start talking about churn rate, it's like, what percentage of the souls that you've been entrusted with are dropping out of care? That's what churn rate tells you. It's like, out of all, you've got X number of active patients, and this percentage of them quit last month, right? That's churn rate. Tells you what percentage, at what rate your people are quitting, right? So you want to know that. And the TRP standard for that, the remarkable standard, is under 3%, right? Do you know what your churn rate is? Pilot. With your 300 souls behind you, do you know what your churn rate is, right? So how many total active patients, how many souls are you entrusted with actively right now? So do you know what your net momentum is right now? How many souls joined the practice? How many souls dropped out of the practice? Take one, subtract the other, and you end up with what your net momentum of souls is, right? So Dr. Pete, didn't mean to take a turn and go really heavy there on that, but that struck me that it's like, man, if we would just elevate our consciousness of what these numbers really indicate.
It's huge. No. Listen, I'm glad you went there. It's powerful. It was a mic drop just to feel the weight of the word. It was like, oh, you're right. That's a big deal. So this is why retention matters, because it's a person, it's a soul. And that's Dr. Stephen too, why people that push back on like the numbers or whatever, resist a little bit. It's like, no, time out. We're only passionate about it because we care about the lives. It's about the people. It's about the soul. Of the person, right? That's why we are passionate about these metrics, because, if we didn't have to worry about them, we wouldn't, but we know we have to because of what it actually means. These are lives. And the last one, again, is not possible to know unless you do the other ones, which is total active patients or total active souls. How many active members do you have of your practice right now? That number should be increasing every single year. Your number of active people. A lot of people say, I'm at this volume per week. But the question is, how many active patients do you have? That's a much better question. The old question was, how many visits a week? The new question asked is, what's your TAP? That's the question of the future chiropractor. Because when you know how many active members you have, you should also then know how many inactive members, previously active members you have. And now you know your business. Now we can start doing some work. Now we can make an impact. And Dr. Stephen, those are just a few of our favorites. Those are 5 operational
favorite practice metrics, gang. So operations, right? So, but like what Dr. Pete said is, we're in the business of saving lives, right? So let's act like it, right? So as we talk about these business metrics, don't let your eyes roll back into your head, right? So, you guys know we reference the biblical law of dominion. The biblical law of dominion talks about stewardship. Okay. So it's just basically when it says you will be blessed categorically according to your ability to demonstrate the capacity to manage well the things that you've already been entrusted with. Think about that. You want more new patients? Well, how are you doing with the new patients? You want more leads? How are you doing with demonstrating the capacity to manage well? You want better compliance? Well, how are you doing with demonstrating the capacity to manage the patients you have? Right? You want more referrals? You want to make more money? How are you demonstrating the capacity to manage well? Guys, so these metrics, when we talk about it, this is how you demonstrate the capacity to manage well what you've been entrusted with already. So if you want abundance, if you want blessing, guys, this is a methodology to demonstrate the capacity to manage well. So I don't want that to be lost on anybody, right? So we say we're in the business of saving lives. Let's act like it. Let's act like it, right? So let's flip the coin over, Dr. Pete. Let's talk about the business metrics, right? So these are going to be the economics, the financial metrics behind retention. Okay. So now this is in business is called delivery, right? So delivery, right? So you've made promises, keep your promises, right? So this is you delivering healthcare, which in the chiropractic space means educating and adjusting, right? It's the education process and the adjusting process. This is the healthcare part of it, right? Education is creating value, adjusting, and all the healthcare that you do, clinical care that you do in your office, that's delivering value, right? So you're creating value, education, and delivering value. That's why they call this delivery. Okay. So here we are, delivery metrics. Here are our favorites, 5 favorites. All right. Number 1, CVA. This is the collection visit average. Okay. So what do you get paid per visit? Okay. So take your total collections divided by total number of visits, right? So this is CVA. Some people call it OVA, right? Office visit average, but that's confusing. A lot of other people say, oh, it's OVA. Well, office visits could mean number of office visits. Collection visit average is clear. What do you collect per visit on average? CVA, collection visit average, right? So you can also segment your data here by stages of care. What's your CVA for a person who's in initial intensive care? What's your CVA for a person who is in corrective care? What's your CVA for a person that's in wellness care? What's CVA for a person that's in maintenance care? You want to know that, right? So you probably have different pricing models, right? And bundles, right? So just keep an eye on what your collection visit average is and know what you want your goals to be, right? So you should know what your collection visit average goals are. This is part of the economic modeling of your business, right? So you might say, I don't want my collection visit average to drop below $70 for a chiropractic office visit, meaning I come in, I get checked, I get adjusted, I leave, right? So that it might be $70 for an adjustment, right? So I want my collection visit average to land there. Everybody got it? CVA. LTV, lifetime value. This is one of the most important metrics. Nobody tracks it, okay? So remember, we're talking about retention. So let's talk about LTV, lifetime value. LTV is calculated using 2 numbers, CVA, the number we just calculated, plus PVA, which is patient visit average. Okay. So patient visit average is how many visits does your average patient who starts with you get over their lifetime. So this is a retention study. So we don't count people that just walked in day 1, never came back on day 2. We don't count people who didn't start care, right? This is a retention study. So you might suck at conversion and it's jacking up your retention metrics. So when you're doing a retention study, it might be misleading and you're like, oh man, we really have to work on retention. Well, maybe you really actually have to be working on conversion, right? And it's dragging down your retention metrics, which is why we do PVA using those who have converted, the people that were actually active patients, right? So you take your total total number of visits in any given time period. Let's say it's a month, a quarter, or a year. Take total number of visits, divide it by the number of patients who converted. So new client conversions or new patient conversions. Okay. So the actual conversions, that's your denominator in that same time period. That's going to give you PVA. So the quick and dirty on lifetime value, Dr. Pete, is PVA times CVA. How many visits does the average person get times the amount we charge on the average visit? Okay. So that's going to give you lifetime value. Why is this an important number? It's an infinitely important number, right? So this is going to inform the rest of the economics of your business. For example, you're going to want to know how much can I spend on my marketing to get a new patient or an active patient, right? Relative to what? How much can this business afford to pay? How much money do we have in the checkbook this week? How much am I comfortable? How much do I feel we should spend? How much do I think we should spend? None of that matters, guys. There's a metric called CAC to LTV ratio or LTV CAC ratio, lifetime value to cost to acquire a customer. That's a ratio. You want to know, what is my target for LTV CAC? Lifetime value to cost to acquire a customer in a, let's call it typical chiropractic adjusting centric office. You're going to want to be somewhere between 6-to-1 and 9-to-1 on an LTV CAC, right? So do you know these numbers? You should, because if you do know the numbers, guess what? You have confidence. You invest in a way that you're ambitious and aggressive, but you sleep like a baby because you know what you're measuring and you know what you're getting for a return on investment. Dr. Pete, I can speak for 3 hours on that one. But at the end of the day, we need to know what the LTV is, lifetime value of a customer is, so that we know how much to market. And we also should feel the pain when somebody discontinues.
Yeah, Doc. I mean, you and I, we've spent quite a bit of time with these stats. And so bringing this to the consciousness of this profession and also obviously through this podcast is just a game changer. So if you guys are listening to Dr. Steven and you're hearing some of these things he's saying, hopefully you're writing it down, because if you want to move the needle in 2026 and beyond, this is the data. This is the numbers you need to know. These are retention numbers. You can see, obviously, we're talking value. These are revenue numbers directly connected to one thing, which is your retention operation. If you want to move the needle on any of those numbers that Dr. Steven just said, you got to go upstream and figure out how can you take better care of people. We talked about the revenue and the results and compliance and all the things. And we talked about the operational metrics. That's why we say it's same coin, different side.
Yes.
You know that you're going to drive your LTV if we do a better job delivering world-class care, holding people accountable, setting better expectations, delivering better results, doing a better job educating tableside. All the things, right, we talk about, that's going to improve and increase the LTV. Because you might be asking, well, what can I do to change it? That's
a lot.
Go back on the other side and look at the practice coin side, and you start to work those. I'll tell you what, you're going to start to see your LTV.
So powerful. So powerful, man. All right, gang. So Dr. Pete, I'm going to teach these last three here backwards. Okay. So I don't want you to freak out. So total revenue, right? So total revenue is what in chiropractic we call collections, right? So top line revenue, right? So how much money are you making in a week, a month, a quarter, a year, right? So top line revenue, right? That's a retention metric. Obviously, the higher your retention, you're starting to create and collect ideal patients. So you increase volume, right? So one way to increase revenues is to increase volume of units sold. Revenue is driven by volume of units sold, right? A unit in the chiropractic world is an office visit, right? So if you retain more people, you're going to see more office visits. So you're going to see more revenue, all right? Number 4 is MRR and ARR, monthly recurring revenue and annual recurring revenue. So monthly is every month, annual is 12 months of recurring revenue, right? So we love the subscription model. We love the we love the recurring revenue model. It is the 800-pound gorilla in business models and in financial modeling, right? So I believe from a philosophical perspective, I want to knock down all barriers to people continuing chiropractic care regularly, right? So, and the biggest number 1 barrier is time. Right. Number 2 is convenience. Number 3 is money. So you were probably like, oh shit, I didn't think you're going to go there. It's like, yeah, no, money is not number 1. So you guys have to get that over. You got to get that out of your head. Right. So most people that you take care of, they have more money than time. Don't forget that. You're just barking up the wrong tree. If you get in your head around, oh, I need to make sure that my care is like so inexpensive and cheap and give people special deals and making bargains. That ain't the problem, guys. It's never a price issue. It's always a value issue. Remember that, right? So it's number 1, people don't have time. Number 2, it's inconvenient. Number 3 is money, right? So let's knock down those barriers, right? So maybe a podcast for another time, Dr. Pete, that'd be good to three to tackle, right? So just knocking down the friction. Let's make it easy for people to pay for their care. In other words, make one decision. Yeah, I'll do this every month. It's $297. Yeah, I'm in. All right, great. I get adjusted once a week or twice a month, whatever the number is. You want to use that credit card? Great. Awesome. So yeah, that's how we'll do it moving forward until you tell us to stop doing it, right? That's monthly recurring revenue, right? It's a beautiful model, one decision, and they're regularly under care for life, right? So as opposed to every single time they're thinking about going and adjusting, one of the factors is the money in their mind, or they have to stop and pay every time, or stop once a month, or every year they got to re-up, right? So do the monthly recurring revenue. Love it. Okay. Last one, Dr. Pete. This is retained revenue. Okay. So retained revenue is, again, the economics associated with the business, right? So I wanted to do the monthly recurring revenue first, because when you have a monthly recurring revenue model, what makes a business incredibly valuable when we're talking about enterprise value is the amount of retained revenue, right? So when we talk about retained revenue, here's your equation. It's starting off the month. What were your revenues, right? That was scheduled to be that month's revenues, like recurring revenue, minus whatever you lost, whatever revenue was lost from churn. So we talked about earlier about churn rate being people that dropped out of care. So people that were under recurring revenue, that they dropped out of care, subtract that and then divide it by that starting revenue, right? So starting revenue going into the month, what we were scheduled to collect, minus whatever you lost in churn, divided by the starting revenue. That's going to give you retained revenue. Dr. Pete, that was a 1-hour MBA in the retention of the chiropractic business. Hey, Doc, if this message is hitting you right between the eyes, it's exactly where we're aiming. This message is for you today. If you said, hey, man, that's me, that's the thing I'm trying to solve, or that's the thing I'm trying to accomplish, and now is the time. If you're ready, let's jump onto a strategy session. You'll see the link down below. Schedule, we'll jump on a call with you, and let's discuss exactly how we can help you create your own remarkable practice.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors.